Guys, so today I'm going to show you how to create an app like this one where you click one button and it changes the background to that colored button. You're going to only use one view controller, so let's get started. We're going to go to Xcode. Let's ignore this one. And we're going to create a new project. It's always going to be a project and it's always going to be a single view app. Going to click next and we're going to name it as app3 underscore your ID. Perfect. And I'm saving it here in my documents. So we're going to create. And we have our brand new project. We're going to be greeted with this window, and we're going to head over to main.storyboard to view our view controller. Close this for now. And so here we have our view controller, and let's open up some code. Remember to open the code up here. So we have our default code, and all our code is going to go inside the class view controller, inside this and this bracket. So we're going to click enter so we can enter our code here. And the first thing we're going to do, since we're going to start talking to the background of our view controller, we have to connect the background as an object into our code. So we're going to control click and connect our view controller as an outlet to our code. So we can later come back and call our code VCT screen. So we have our first object. This is an object called VCT screen, which is the screen or the background of the view controller. As you can see, if we hover our mouse over the little dot, we can see that our object glows blue. Next up, we're going to create a button. The first button out of 3 buttons, and we can click and drag into our view controller. So I want to change my text color to, let's say, a black, and my background to a gray, or this one's great. You can change it to anything you'd like, and we'll have it centered. And I'm going to start with a red color. So my red color, if I were to run the code right now and click the red button, nothing would happen as it has no connection with my code whatsoever. So I have to connect my button with my code. I'm going to click connect inside my view controller function. And as always, buttons are always action, connection. I'm going to name it button red. Type, always click UI button. If it's any, it's not going to work. And connect. So right here we have our button. If I hover over the dot, I'll see that it glows blue for my connection. And all code for my button goes inside these curly brackets. So the code, I'm going to start writing code. The code is, first I'm going to say which object I want to change. So I want to change the background, which I called VCT screen. And Xcode itself, it guides me, VCT screen dot. I want to change the background color, so yeah, that's the first thing. If I put background color, and I want to change it to UI color, since it's a user interface color, and change it to UI color red. There we go. Perfect. So I'm gonna repeat this action. You know what? I want to copy and paste this button as it's easier. I like the formatting, and here we go. I'm gonna name this one yellow. However, if I were to run the code, let me just run it, I will get an error as the code and the connection for my red button is also copied to my yellow button. So if I right click, I see that I have a connection with button red, even though this is a yellow button. So I have to disconnect this connection, and now I have a blank button which I could connect to my code. Okay, so, well, that's still loading. I'm going to continue. We'll click and drag, same as always. Action, it's going to be button yellow. Type, UI button, connect. As for the code, this code is gonna is the same thing. It's gonna call the object VCT screen, which I named it here VCT screen, which is the background. Its background color, which is the attribute, and I want to change it to red. So I can copy and paste this inside the code for my button yellow. Okay. And instead of red, let's see if yellow works. Yeah, yellow works. Perfect. So now I have three connections: the background, my red, my yellow, and I'm missing my blue. Let's do the same. Copy and paste my yellow button. Oops. There we go. And then this one blue. Right click. I see I don't have a connection for some reason. I have it in yellow, right? Okay, I have a disconnected. As you can see, it doesn't have a period. I clicked on something and it doesn't have a period. I can just click and drag right back to create my connection. And now it's a full circle, it's a full period, and there's my connection. So I must have clicked on something that disconnected the yellow button. So next up, we're going to connect the blue button. Click and drag as always. It's an action. This is a button. Name it button blue. Type a UI button. Same as always. And I can copy and paste my code inside my blue button. Change this to blue. Xcode helps me there. And this is the one I ran before. I click red and yellow. It does the same thing since the connection to yellow was red, as you can see. So my code right now here works. Let's just run it. I have 4 connections, one with my background, the other 3 with my buttons. Each button has its own connection. And as I was telling you in class, the 2 greatest bugs, issues I've seen is, first one, your connections are off. So you have to right click and view your connections. Maybe you don't even have a connection there, or maybe you created a connection and you didn't like the name of the button and you deleted it, but the button remembers of that connection. You have to disconnect it manually here. So I just have 1 connection here for red, 1 connection for yellow, and lastly 1 connection for blue. If it were to have more than 1 connection, let's try that actually. I'm going to connect this here, and let's say I'm going to name it an outlet just because, and I'm going to name it outlet red and connect. So I have a connection with red over here, another connection with red, my button. If I were to right click, I have 1 connection, one connection with button and 1 connection as an outlet. If I were to run that code, it would not work, as it has 2 connections and the program doesn't know what to do with both connections. So I see, okay, I have 1 connection which I don't need and which is wrecks my programming. I delete it, so I only have 1 connection. But if we right click on red, you can see we still have that connection. The button still remembers that connection. So we have to close that connection. And now our program works. Always, 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 if you have an error, let's close this and the navigation pane. You can also change this. Always check that your program is inside this class view controller. This is the code that goes inside your view controller. Always check that it ends in a bracket as well. And if you're having trouble, and you can just count your brackets. So you have to have the same amount of opening brackets as closing brackets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 opening brackets. Let's see if it's the same amount of closing brackets. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 closing, and that's how it's supposed to be. So let's move on to our visualization. Red, yellow, blue, that's perfect. So as you can see, it's not centered here, and I have it centered here in my view controller. That's because we're running iPhone 8 Plus. This is the emulator for iPhone 8 Plus over here, and I'm viewing the view controller as an iPhone 8. So I have to change it to an iPhone 8, 8 Plus, or wherever. I normally recommend you to use the iPhone SE, as it's the emulator is the quickest to run. So we're going to center this on the iPhone SE, make this a little bit more centered, and we're going to emulate on the iPhone SE. And voila, if you'd run it again, it would be centered and even faster. So we finished our code. Now what? In order to upload our code, we have to run 3 things. We have to close our navigation pane, close our utilities pane, even close anything else like the debugger pane, which is this one from the bottom. This one you can also close it here. There's another one which controls the view controller scenes. You close it. So we will have 3 things. We'll have our emulator on the left running the code, our code, let me center this so I can easily grade this, and our view controller. Once our emulator code runs, or our code runs on the emulator, I'm going to take a screenshot, and this is going to be one of my deliverables. This and the folder, my compressed folder of the whole Xcode project. So I just wait a second for it to load up. There we go. So if you don't know the key combinations for a screenshot, it's Apple Shift 4. And now I have a little cross which I can just click and drag throughout my screen. And there we go. We have a screenshot. So let me quit the simulator, which is the emulator for the iPhone. I can click Save here, or File, Save, and close my Xcode. So remember, we saved our Xcode project in Documents. I'm going to go to Documents, and here's my Xcode project. It has other files and folders inside. We don't have to look into it. If you were to edit, you can open your Xcode project double-clicking this. But the things we're going to submit to Blackboard is this one. We right-click, click Compress, and we get this file. And over here, I have my screenshot. As you can see, it's easily organized into 3 things: the code, the view controller, and the emulator running the code. Now let's try uploading it. We will go to App 3, Use of Buttons, and browse my computer. I'm going to go to Documents, our compressed file, and our screenshot. Let's try the compressed file. Open. Browse my computer once more, and the screenshot. And voila! That's how you upload your homework.